to begin with Miranda for the rebuttal.
I would like to start off by saying that although we have spent almost the entire time discussing one man and his individual case, that man being Ernesto Miranda, this court case is not just about him. This is about 4 different men in 4 different situations who dealt with the same problem created by law enforcement. The question in this case has nothing to do with what these men did. I ask you not to think about their crimes, not to think about what kind of men they are, but to realize that regardless of their past, the information obtained from them and used against them in these cases were taken from them unconstitutionally. The Fifth Amendment states that we have protection against self-incrimination and that we have the right to remain silent. The Sixth Amendment gives us the right to counsel. In not one of these cases were any of these men informed that they had the right to speak with an attorney before they were interrogated by law enforcement. It cannot be proven that these men were fully aware that they had the right to remain silent when questioned, and it is unfair to just assume that they already knew based upon their past. It is unconstitutional to use information taken from an individual who is unaware that they did not have to provide that information in the first place. If you do not make a decision in favor of Miranda and the other men in this case, this issue will continue popping up for years to come. This is not something that's going to go away. I plead you to not only consider the men of this case, but to think about every citizen of this country that has ever and will ever be arrested. Whether the individuals are truly innocent or guilty, whether they have been through the process before or it is their first time, we have all had the right to be informed on what we can and should do in order to protect ourselves in a court of law. We need to be informed on our options and be able to counsel before information is taken from us and used against us. The decision you make regarding this case has nothing to do with 4 guilty men. It has to do with all of us and what we are, or what we as citizens of this country deserve to be informed of upon being arrested. We have been told what protection is given to us by the we have to be told what protection is given to us by the Fifth and Sixth Amendments of the United States Constitution. This case is not just about Miranda and this crime. Do not treat it as such.
Justices, do you have any questions?
So you do not believe it's the duty of American citizens to know the rights they have?
I think that they should be told their rights.
So it's correct that you do not believe that we
I don't think that we should. I think it's hard to know every single right that you have, and I think that it's the duty of the law enforcement to remind people upon being arrested.
But just so they shouldn't remind you of all your rights?
Well, if there's a specific case, they should remind you.
So you believe that criminals should be reminded of the rights that apply to them?
Yes.
I know you said, don't think about the men, but
Yeah.
did you say that, in the Fifth Amendment, it says, you can't self-incriminate yourself, but it says, nor shall we be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Would you say he was compelled to be a witness against himself,
I think in the interrogation, he was kind of forced to, in that particular case. But
Isn't that the point of an interrogation also?
yes, but he should have had the right to counsel, or he should have been told of his right to counsel before, and been told that he had the opportunity to discuss what he can give us, or what he should counsel.
So you believe it's the policeman's job to tell him that he has those rights available?
Yes.
And that he should have been told of them if he didn't ask for them himself before.
Yes.
But technically, at the current time, did he violate any due process of the law? Arresting him?
To the police officer.
No, not at the time, but that's what we're trying to get a conclusion.
I have a question, but I
I
don't
was
know
like,
where
you
it
look
is.
like your attempt. And we'll have you if we need to.
Why should they be read their rights when they're arrested?
Because they have options, and anyone who is arrested has the option to talk to counsel, and they have the option to remain silent. We don't always know, very people don't always know that, or at least they didn't. So they should be told so that they can protect themselves and those things.
if they're not guilty, then how would this help them?
Because they can talk to somebody beforehand and they can figure out, you know, what to say and what to do, because interrogations can be very stressful and sometimes people can give information under high pressure that maybe isn't always true. Because people have been convicted before for things that they haven't done. So if they,
Well, that's with the Miranda rights already.
I'm sorry, what?
That's after the
Yeah,
Miranda rights already.
but I'm just
So that
saying
didn't
what-
help them. Right.
But
It's gonna happen regardless if we have immigrant rights.
I know, I'm just saying it's better to inform people of their rights so that they know and we have those now.
Do you know the statistics between wrongful convictions before Miranda rights and after Miranda
I
rights?
No, because it's not after. We don't know about after. 0% after. I'm done.
I can't think of the way to word my questions.
Good. And Arizona. Whenever you're ready.
Alright. I guess I just want to start with, our opponent said that it is not about going guilty, that it's about everyone, which I feel is not the case. It is about the poor guilty men that confess to their crimes and were put away for it, like they should. If we inform criminals of their rights beforehand, there's a lot more likely chance that they'll get out. If they know that they have a right to an attorney, which I'm not saying that the poor men didn't know that they had a right to an attorney, but it's a lot more likely that if the men or the women know that they're legally, that they'll call the attorney and the attorney will automatically tell them that they shouldn't confess no matter what, despite if they're guilty or not. If Ernesto Miranda did call an attorney, he would have been a lot more likely not to confess to something that he did do. Also, it seems that our opponents are automatically assuming that the police want to put the person they're interrogating away. It's the police's job. They don't want to put, they're public servants, they don't want to put innocent people in jail. They want to get down to what actually happened. It's not their goal to get a confession out of everyone they bring into the interrogation room. They want to make sure that they're putting the right person away and that they're not jumping to rash conclusions. Also, I guess, they have experience and knowledge putting people away. They don't, I guess, just, they know more than, I guess, probably a lawyer does, putting, investigating and finding out why they're guilty. I guess.
So you're saying that by reading their rights, it'll make it harder for them to get a solid conviction because they'll be able to hide their evidence better? Because they'll be able to spot more loopholes, whereas if they know their rights already like they should, then...
Well, we're also coming from a time where it wasn't necessary to read your rights. It wasn't across the whole nation that it was a law that you had to. Like, we were coming from a time where it was like, the ways people would arrest people were like, they would get whipped, or there's lynch threats, or people would beat people to get them to answer what they were asking for, or like water cure, which is holding the suspect's head underwater for long periods of time, and then asking them long interrogating questions until they pretty much give up and just confess. So the way
So you don't think they should have an attorney to protect them from that kind of
No,
thing?
I'm just saying we were coming from a time where we were developing ways of arresting people. Like, we were getting to the point where, after this case, that's when it became a law where the Miranda rights came into play.
So you're condoning that treatment of the criminals?
No, I'm just saying,
who
like-
get confessions because they don't have a attorney?
What?
You're condoning the torture of suspects to,
They weren't tortured.
if they had
Yeah,
an
they weren't
attorney
tortured.
though?
There was no
You wouldn't-
force
You
or.
wouldn't call dunking your head underwater and holding
That-
it underwater.
That
until
didn't happen.
you guys
I'm just
tortured.
saying that was in, like, previous ways of
That
arresting
was-
people prior to these cases.
No, that was even, there was more cases before that. Like this, they weren't tortured. It's.
Not these four specific,
None of
just
them.
like in general.
In
you
general,
were
like,
saying
that's
that.
the way people would.
Not really long time ago, way before this. Not.
I'm just saying, like, we were coming from a time like that, so the way he was treated was a lot more constitutional compared to ways years, many years before that.
But like Emily said, this case is not just technically about four men. This
Well,
can affect
no.
any case in the future.
No innocent men were forced to confess. These cases, there wasn't a case where there was an innocent
But when you
person.
say there's a possibility that an innocent man could be arrested,
There's always a possibility that an innocent man could be arrested.
And if he didn't know that he had the right to an attorney, and they didn't tell him that he had the right, and he started answering questions, and he wasn't the smartest guy, and he was just not answering as he should, even though he wasn't guilty, and it made him seem guilty because there's some people that could frame him, and without an attorney, he would self-incriminate himself.
Well, he's innocent, so he has that going for him. But so you're saying that if he answers the questions like he's guilty?
Yeah, because it looks like he's guilty because he's being set up, and he doesn't have an attorney to tell him not to talk, because they know that he looks like he's guilty, and he's gonna get convicted because he looks like he's guilty, when he's innocent because he told them all the information that makes him look guilty without being told not to tell them that.
So you think he's gonna make himself look guilty?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? And that an attorney, well, I guess at that point, if he looks guilty and he's telling them that he's kind of guilty, that's pretty unlikely that that's gonna happen to that extent, that an innocent guy is gonna say that much to think that he's guilty.
A lot of people have been given the death penalty while they're innocent, though, right?
Right, but you don't know if they have an attorney or not.
Well, even if they did and they still get the death penalty, what do you think would happen if they didn't have an attorney? It would have been even quicker that they got the death penalty, right?
Well, if they already got the death penalty.
Do you believe that what Anthony's trying to say is that rights would protect someone who's innocent, having those rights read to them?
I think, well, they're already innocent, so they already have that going for them. And if our justice system worked as well as we want it to, then they would never be convicted, but.
okay, yes or no, just yes or no, would knowing that you have the right to an attorney, do you think that would help an innocent man not self-incriminate himself?
I think that it would help, it would also help a guilty man, but then the innocent man also already has that he's innocent going for him, but a guilty man is guilty. And if he has the right to an attorney, he will be able to.
Wouldn't you say that if a guilty man's guilty, they'd find evidence against him,
Not.
despite having an attorney? An attorney can't discard evidence.
Well, yeah, but they can't get a confession out of him if their attorney isn't letting him talk. Is saying that you shouldn't give a statement or a confession.
So what if he already knows his rights, regardless of whether he was told them or not? He does have that attorney already. Then would it really matter whether or not they have those rights read to them? If they already know that they can have the attorney to protect them.
Sorry, what? Sorry, use it again.
Because you're saying if he didn't have his rights to them, or read to him, then he wouldn't know that he could have an attorney. And then he would be more likely to
hiding information from him?
So by not telling him he has an attorney?
Yeah.
It's not really hiding, I would say. They're not required to tell him that he has the right to attorney.
So you're saying by not telling him information that's easy to get, it's not hiding information from him?
By telling him,
By not telling him information that he could very well already know and should already know, it's not
Are you
hiding
talking about this
information
case
from
or all cases?
him? All cases.
so,
So if he has the opportunity to learn these and they don't tell him, it's not hiding information from
Well,
him, right?
they do inform them of their rights.
The cases that happened were like 30 years apart. A lot can happen between that.
Miranda was not informed of his rights though,
He's been arrested numerous times.
but he wasn't informed of this.
At this time,
he
no.
wasn't,
But also,
his, criminal record suggested that he already knows rights, and his,
the Supreme Court even
officers-
said he already knew his rights too.
the officers, one of the officers, Young, testified that, he,
You can't say that, Caitlin. These are the Supreme Court. They're making the
Yeah.
decision.
that he,
They didn't say that. Sorry.
it's okay, that he, the officer Young told him that he had the right to remain silent, and it said in the, statement that they read to him that anything he said could be used against him, so they informed him about his amendment rights. And then they didn't have, it's not required that they inform him of the right to attorney.
Would you also argue that by signing that he's fully aware of his rights, right there, it's his responsibility if he doesn't know them to ask him?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Why would he didn't know his rights, why would he ask?
Okay. We need to stop. We need to stop. We went well beyond your time. Unless you, well, we can't ask for an extension because they didn't give an extension, so. And you go last. And you always get to speak last, so, do you have like a little bit left?
No, I guess that's fine. I guess we're good. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that was that case. Unless you guys need more information, I don't think we do.
No.
We kind of were going around in circles there. So we decided we would conference on this after we're done with both cases. So let's have Miranda and Arizona switch places with Abington and Champaign. Let's have Abington sit closer to me. Just petitioner and then respondent. Pay attention. You are going to do a write-up, but it's not going to be that.
Okay.
Wait, who's going first? Then Abington goes first. The petitioner always goes first. Abington petition. One of the case to be checked. Okay, and let me write some things down. This is 15-26. How much time do you have?
10 minutes.
But we went way behind with others. Okay. I think I need to extend the time just in general, because every single year we go more than that, but the students, if I say 10 minutes, when I say 10 minutes, they pretty
It
So,
does sound like a long time.
maybe I should say 10 minutes in upfront and then just give 15 minutes.
Do you think our side will able to say?
I'm guessing not.
Okay.
Okay.
You mentioned
Rapid fire questions. I don't know, I think I can
I
answer.
feel like, Eric Spencer was maybe the more of the rapid fire.
and they were all
Like watch it, like, I don't know, I feel like I can handle it, you just kind of gotta
It's like
like, listen to the question and be like, okay, you
do
do
have to
stop
listen
now,
to
now I
the
can
question.
answer you. Stop talking, let me answer you.
And then
Yeah, Brown versus State in the city was 1956. black stance.
Okay, we are going to begin with the little thing that's read before a case, okay? So you guys don't have to rise, you get the picture. So we're going to begin with this thing. So the Honorable the Chief and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States, oyez, oyez, oyez. All persons having business before the Honorable the Supreme Court of the United States are admonished to draw near and give their attention, for the court is now sitting. God save the United States and this honorable court. The case of Abington, Pennsylvania, the School District of Abington, Pennsylvania, versus Schempp may now begin.
Okay, so we are Abington School District against the Schempp family suing the school district, and the U.S. In 1963, well, I guess we're not saying that, but, Edward Louis Schempp and his wife sued Abington School District for each day at the beginning of each school day. 10 verses and the Lord's Prayer were said at the beginning of each school day. And students could be excused from this reading if they had a note from their parents, and it was kind of required throughout. I'm pretty sure it was every public school in Pennsylvania at the time, and a couple other states. At the time, they had 3 children, but 2 of them were in the school at the time. Ellery was a 16-year-old student who their family was Unitarian, or is Unitarian, which means they believe in Christianity, but not entirely. They don't believe in the entire Bible. They don't believe in the Trinity. So they're sort of Christians, and they're a liberal family. In 1956, Schempp, a student at Abington High School, brought a Quran into the homeroom and read it as a protest against the policy and the related practice of reciting the Lord's Prayer. He was sent to the principal's office, and with the assistance of his parents and the ACLU, sued the school. They said it basically went against the First Amendment and the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause, which we believe it is constitutional for the Bible reading to be still led in schools because keep going. We believe it is constitutional because nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the Bible reading and prayer cannot be held in school. The children were able to be opted out of this if they had a note from their parents. It wasn't actually forced. It was strongly recommended, but they weren't forced to. And since they didn't have to, it's still classified as freedom of religion. And if you look up religion in the dictionary, it's read as the body of persons adhering to a particular beliefs and practices, or something one believes in involves directly upon a matter of ethics or conscience, or a specific fundamental of beliefs and practices generally agreed upon by a number of persons. So if schools or the government is trying to take out religion from school, you can say that atheism is also a religion, so there's no possible way to actually take out religion from schools, because either way, someone's going to be worshiping something, whether it's a god, whether it's anything, drugs, money, somebody's going to be worshiping something. And so taking away religion of Christianity or whatever it is, Buddhism, whatever, is not taking away religion, because atheism or not having religion still is religion.
By reading those verses every day, don't you think that's indoctrination of the children? They don't know any better.
No, because either way, either taking away their religion or not, it's still forcing something upon a student. Either taking it away or
But wouldn't
providing
this be
it.
forcing one religion, where if they were to read different religions every day, that'd be more of like an educational value program instead of just reading one religion? It seems more like indoctrination, don't you think?
It's not necessarily forcing, because they could get out of it with a note. And during that time, they could go worship whatever they want. They could do whatever they want.
What happens if they don't share the same religious views as their parents, so their parents won't give them a note?
I'm sure that their parents would give them a no if they asked. If not, I don't know, it's what their parents want.
Do you believe it's fair that someone who worships a different religion doesn't get to have verses from whatever their religion is read every day? If someone wanted to read from the Quran and he got sent to the principal's office for that.
He didn't actually believe in that though, he just did that as a protest. He did it, just to say, hey, I don't like this, so I'm gonna do this.
Shouldn't he have the
Either
same?
way, yeah.
Go.
Either way, it's still freedom of religion. He can still read the Quran if he wants.
He didn't believe in that though, he's a Unitarian.
I can read the Quran and I don't believe in it.
But if he had a no, then it would have been fine. But he did it in class as a protest, which is why he was sent to the principal's office.
If, say, someone did actually believe in that religion, wouldn't it not be fair to them that they can't read that in class, that they have to leave the classroom because the Christians want to read from the Bible? Why should they have to leave?
If
They have a different religion.
if he actually would have believed in that, it wouldn't have been as a protest. It would have been genuine. Or he probably wouldn't have been sent to the principal's office.
You
How
said
would
it,
How would they determine if it's a protest or not?
Well, I'm just saying that.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
How would they determine if it's a protest or not?
you said his parents were Unitarian, but how do you know that he was Unitarian too? Because you said if they didn't share the same beliefs as their parents, you're sure that their parents would write them a no, is what you said, right? So,
They probably would. If not, then it's their parents' decision. They're not 18 yet.
so just because they're not 18, they have to be forced to read a religion that they don't believe in?
Well, I don't know. They don't necessarily have to read it. They could.
But they'd be
Yeah,
forced
there were
to.
other options.
Yeah.
They weren't forced to do it.
But they were forced to sit there and listen to it if they didn't have the no, correct?
And they weren't like, there was no like comment about it afterwards. They like read it and didn't say anything afterwards. They didn't say like, this is what you should believe. It just happened, and they went on with their day.
But is that the same for all the schools? Because you said it was in several states. Is that the same for all the schools, or is it just the one school that didn't have a sermon based on that each one?
I'm gonna jump in here. In Pennsylvania, which is what
Yeah.
we're concerned about when we're talking about Shem, it was to be all schools throughout the state, elementary, middle school, high school, read without comment. So the without comment part
Yeah.
was to be
So
Was that a law?
universal. It
In
was a law.
Pennsylvania? It was a law?
Yeah.
It was state statute.
You don't think that violates the Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion?
They weren't an establishment of religion. It was a school.
Respecting an establishment of religion is like reading in a school. That's like establishing a religion. It's not like a building. Establishing a religion.
There's no historical proof, or there's no persuasive historical case can be made for proving that the writers of the Constitution had in mind of the absolute separation of church and state. There's no way to prove that they were trying to separate church and state when they said that.
Is there a way to prove it against that?
The only thing that they intended for was not to have like a state church like England had.
How do you know that's what they wanted?
So you said that the founders of the Constitution didn't. You don't know that that's what they meant. But Thomas Jefferson was definitely helpful with the Constitution. Would you say? So by his church and he was actually the one that said separation of church and state. Don't you think that's complete separation?
That wasn't in the Constitution. No, that was in a letter.
But you said the
that-
founders of the Constitution didn't necessarily mean this. But Thomas Jefferson was the founder of the Constitution and meant this, right?
That was an idea that came up after the Constitution.
In the 14th Amendment, it says that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. So, if someone wanted to speak with their religion in class, they were not allowed to do so if they were not Christian. Do you believe that's fair to them?
Well, the other students couldn't really speak about it in class either. They just read the verses without comment, and recited the Lord's Prayer. That's it.
But if they were to speak about it after, they would have gotten in trouble.
Would they have gotten in trouble?
What was the question?
Like, if they were gonna talk about, like, the day's verses afterwards.
The speaking part, that was the teacher was not to
Yeah, but, like, the
teach
kids
or
would.
instruct.
Mhm.
So whether the kids talked about it afterwards, that was up to them.
Yeah, the
Okay.
kids can talk about whatever they want, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, whatever, they can talk about.
What if the kids could talk about whatever they want after the reading, or even during, because you said they could zone out, right?
If they really didn't.
Then why did that young man get sent to the principal's office for reading something else?
Because he did it in protest. He did it against the teachers.
So wouldn't zoning out be considered a protest too then?
Not necessarily.
Under the First Amendment, you have the right to freedom of speech and peacefully assemble. Assembly is a form of protest, so why would
I don't think it was really peacefully.
Well, did he do anything violent?
Not physically violent, no, but.
So by reading from his,
But he went out of his way to make sure that that everyone knew in his class that he was doing this against the teacher, to purposely like go against. Like obviously if you're doing something in your classroom that you're purposely spiting the teacher, you're gonna get in trouble for it, so no matter what you're doing, if it's religious or not.
See, it was kind of like the toga thing that happened earlier this year. People obviously did it in protest.
So you're saying we shouldn't be allowed to do that?
Well,
Don't say that, because then he's gonna vote against
that's
you.
not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the people who did it afterwards, they did it in protest, and they could have gotten in trouble with that. They could have gone to the principal's office, and that
And that's
was a
okay?
good question.
And that's okay, you said?
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't violating any laws, it's still okay when we get in trouble for not violating any laws or rules?
Well, in school you're not violating laws of like the
You're
government.
violating policies of the school.
Yeah, rules of the school.
Like with that, it was a dress code, but
Why does one take more precedence than the other? It's just a smaller, it's federalism right there, right? So by violating one law at a different level of the government, because the school government is still technically a government, and the policy is still the laws that government has, right? So either way, you're still breaking the law, it just has different consequences, right? So you're saying that
I don't know
we
where
need
you're
to stop
going
there
with that.
anyway. The time that the bell is going to ring shortly, so let's put things away. Go ahead.
Okay, so we are defending the chef side, so their case, you heard all the background. The court below, the lower court, found that it was unconstitutional either to read the 10 verses of the Bible alone or in conjunction with the Lord's Prayer. So the amendment that is unconstitutional is Bible reading in public schools. At least 10 verses from the Holy Bible shall be read without comment at the opening of each public school on each school day. Any child shall be excused from such Bible reading or attending such Bible reading upon written request of his parent or guardian. So, and if teachers did not follow along with this, they were either fired for refusing to participate, and their students were occasionally separated from others if they did not join in the Bible reading. Teachers ordered students to rise and recite the verses, and students in a broadcasting class read the verses over a public address system in some schools. So, and how it relates to the Constitution is that the First Amendment, it states Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion, and the 14th Amendment that states no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. In some cases that the separation of church and state were involved in, most of them were Bible reading or the prayer in most cases. So.
So the verses were read over the entire school.
Yes, in some schools.
in some schools. I don't know if I said it in this class, but it's just like, you know, Minnesota has a bunch of statutes for what all public schools in Minnesota have to do, but it's up to each school to implement them how either they see fit or how they're able. So Princeton High School might implement a particular statute in one way, and South Elementary might do it in a different way, and Malacca might do it in yet another way. So just keep that in mind. It wasn't uniform in every single school in Pennsylvania that they all read it over the PA. Some schools maybe each individual teacher did in the classroom. Some schools maybe it was over the PA, or maybe other methods too. I think one of the schools, I don't know, maybe this was a Delaware one, where the students volunteered to read it too, so it wasn't necessarily the teacher that had to do it. Yeah.
Did his parents file the lawsuit?
Yes.
And did they sign him a note to get out of the Bible reading?
They did not. It's kind of hard when every day a parent has to sign a note. Like, some people in the school, like, their parents leave before they even get up, so they don't have time to write a note. So it's kind of,
So they'd have to do a note every single day, not just like one note to get out for the year?
yeah.
I would like to see some evidence.
Are you sure?
That's what we found.
Wouldn't you say it's kind of odd that the parents either couldn't or wouldn't sign a note, yet they see the school over Bible reading?
I don't find it odd because it's freedom of religion. Like, just signing a note, they still would have, like, they are still reading it in schools, and
And they were also worried that their child would be bullied or treated differently, because they were being separated. So they didn't want to, take that chance and possibly their child be bullied, and that can leave, long-lasting, physical or mental, like, yeah, and low self-esteem, so they didn't want to risk that.
So you think they were kind of worried about the kid maybe getting like in trouble or sent to the principal's office for this?
yes.
If a student didn't have a note and a teacher called on them to read, but they didn't want to, would they still have to go to the front?
Yes, or they would, be sent to the principal's office because they were not following the policies of that school.
So would you say it would be forced on students even if they don't want to do the reading?
Yes.
Anything more? Okay, each group has like 5 minutes to figure out what your rebuttal is going to be. In your rebuttal, think about your goal is to talk about what they just said and also to drive home that final point.
Okay.
I'll go ask them to see that.
Shades
Just
the same color. or
Okay.
Confused color.
Good. Okay. So in summary, we are saying that the Shemp's reading of the Bible in the Pennsylvania states is constitutional because if the Shemps wouldn't have been Unitarian and they would have been completely believing in all parts of the Bible, they probably wouldn't have had a problem with it. And Jefferson, you said Thomas Jefferson had based talking about church and state and whatever. And we shouldn't base our decisions off of one person's decision, and that was one person who said that, even though like he was a great, like he was a big influence on the state and the Constitution.
After the Constitution.
Yeah. The Constitution wasn't meant to separate church and state, it was just meant to not create a state church.
By reading one religion's book throughout the state, isn't that creating a church state, or a state church rather? Because it's one religion throughout the whole state instead of many?
Not necessarily, because, it wasn't mandatory, so they could have a note and get out of it, and.
It was mandatory
it's
for
not-
the schools to read one religion, though, right?
Right. Just to read that. It doesn't create a state church because there wasn't actually like an established, yes, this is the church of our state.
Can you tell me the national religion of the United States?
We don't have,
So why should they be reading just the Bible in schools?
because that's what the majority is. And, we're a democracy, we like to count the majority of the people.
Statistics. In 1963, 91% of the population was Christian and 4% was Jewish in our country.
Thank you.
We looked that up in another class.
So if
Sorry.
over 90% is Christian, I don't know, if they're gonna read something.
So you're saying in our democracy that the minority has no say?
They do have a say, that's why they could have a note,
That's why
get out
it's
of it.
mandatory.
A lot of people can get out of it though, their parents would give them a note or something.
Well, when they turn 18, then that's up to them, but as long as they're
They still
minor,
have a
it's up
chance
to
to
their
make noise.
parents. Anything else?
Looks like he has a question.
I'm just thinking about it. I don't know. It's complicated because there's like two different ways you can look at it. But I mean, I feel like it's not the right thing, even though it's still 4%. You still have to be like respecting their ways of like life and how they view it.
Okay, that's for conference stuff.
Oh.
And
Then I
we're not
have
looking at
nothing to say.
as like morality, like this is constitutional or unconstitutional. And nowhere in the Constitution does it really say that they can't do that.
So you think it would be constitutional for them to read out of a different religion's book then too?
Sure.
Yeah, earlier you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can't take religion out of school. Yet you want them to force religion into school.
They're not
They're not
forcing
forcing it.
By reading it every morning, how is that not forcing it into school?
because they could get out of it.
Not just the students. Are they forcing religion into school or not? They're reading the Bible verse every morning.
Even if they took the Bible reading out, they're still reading it in school.
You're not presenting it to the kids, correct? There's going to be religion
But by
anywhere, but
Yeah,
by not reading it, you're not forcing it onto the children.
but by
Right
not
now
reading it,
we're-
you're forcing non-believing as well.
Yeah. Which is still a religion.
How are you forcing non-believing onto them?
Because it's been like we can't talk about it, we can't pray in school, we can't teachers can't talk about it or anything.
By not talking about it, it's not forcing them to not believe, it's forcing them not to talk about it. And there's no law against not talking about it, is there? Because we have the freedom of speech in Amendment 1. Okay.
The First Amendment Establishment Clause prohibits the government from having actions that unduly favor one religion over another. Do you believe that Christianity is being favored over other religions?
I suppose, but that's just because at the time it was over 90%, so makes sense.
But it's saying that it's unconstitutional to favor one over another.
In the establishment clause.
The establishment clause.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
The First Amendment Establishment Clause prohibits the government from having actions that unduly favor one religion over another. Do you believe that Christianity is being favored over students with other religions in the classroom?
I mean, you could look at it both ways, because, like, that is, like, what they're actually doing, but then they could still get out of it, so they're providing things for people with other religions, so it's still...
Are they
it
providing
depends on how
different
you look at it.
readings for the other religions in the school?
They could provide their own.
But since
Is
the
school-
students are having the reading provided for them for one religion and not another, don't you think that's favoring the one? Even though it's a majority, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's still favoring the one religion over the others, isn't it?
I don't know if they had, like education units on other religions. I'm
Some
guessing
schools
they
may
did.
have, some may not.
Yeah.
So do you believe it's fair that they only get one unit, whereas they read out of the Bible every single day? Wouldn't that be unduly favoring one religion over another?
I don't think so, because the other students could use that time to do the same thing, or like they were.
But they would have to do it outside of the classroom on their own.
Right, but it would be during the same time, it would
Yeah,
be like going to
yeah,
a different class.
The teachers and the school would not be providing that time, correct? Like they would not be reading the Bible verses or the Quran or whatever other religion to the kids. So the school is favoring religion of Christianity.
Well, like Ms. Sorensen said before, it depended on the school about how they went about it, like whether the teacher read it or the students read it.
Well, like either way,
I don't think the teacher ever read it.
It was either just like over the PA or the students read it.
I think in some classes the teacher.
Okay.
I think we're just going in circles now.
Yeah.
Did,
Yeah.
did like the state of Pennsylvania like make it like a law that you have to read, like you have to read like some way you have to read from the Bible in school?
I think it was a law, like that the schools like did this, but you know the students could obviously.
It wasn't,
Okay,
it
but-
wasn't a specific religion time, but like people could get out of it, but they didn't have to.
Can you reread the law to
Specifically.
us one more time for Eric?
The what?
Can you reread the law for us one more time?
The, like from Pennsylvania or like
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if this is specifically, but alleging that students were to read 10 Bible verses each morning along with the Lord's Prayer. Students could be excused from this reading with a note from their parents. Yeah, I don't know if that's.
So then, like, the first line of, like, the First Amendment states that the U.S. Constitution prohibits any making of any law respecting the establishment of a religion. So, like, it's prohibiting the law. Like, if Pennsylvania made the law that you have to read from the Bible, which is Christian religion, but the Constitution prohibits any law being made. So technically they're going against the Constitution, making it unconstitutional because they're making a law that they have to be respecting this religion.
But the law was already established after the Constitution. So. Right, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Because I'm saying is that the First Amendment, like the first line, it states that the U.S. Constitution prohibits the making of any law respecting the establishment of religion. So if Pennsylvania made a law saying that you need to be reading from the Bible for like 10 minutes each morning, because the Bible is Christian religion, isn't that a law saying that you have to respect this religion? And it states first line in the First Amendment that you can't make a law to respect any establishment of religion.
I think that with the option of being able to have other religions at the same time was preventing them specifically having to believe in Christianity.
So you're saying like the no that they have is like, that's what makes this law okay then, is if you're bringing the no? But there's still a law though, that Pennsylvania made.
Right.
We actually covered these questions yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was, I missed it.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yep, we're good. Thank you.
Haley will read the law for you.
We had that exact question yesterday.
Okay, so the law that we are talking about, I already read, but the Bible reading in public schools. At least 10 verses from the Holy Bible shall be read without comment at the opening of each public school on each school day. Any child shall be excused from such Bible reading or attending such Bible reading upon the written request of his parent or guardian. That's the law. The Pennsylvania law requiring 10 Bible verses to be read aloud in public schools each day is unconstitutional. It grossly infringes upon the First and 14th Amendment, which protect the freedom of religion. Every American is unique and everyone has the constitutional right to believe whatever they choose without the opinions of others forced on them. At a young age, children are learning right and wrong and are extremely susceptible to influence. They have parents to guide their religion and moral beliefs, not public schools. Parents have the right to enroll their children into a private religion of their choice. That is why we have private schools. Public schools have the diversity of characteristics and beliefs that they cannot take away from children. Therefore, this law is unconstitutional and you should vote in favor of the Shem family.
Just to clear things up once, when you say by the schools reading Bible verses every morning, are they favoring Christianity over other religions?
Yes.
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think this is going to be
Okay,
the same question.
you guys are not very good because you're supposed to make it seem like you are not favoring one side over the other. You're supposed to like
Oh, no, the heck?
not
I don't know
show
what
that
to ask
part.
her.
See, this is the one that typically is the one that there's lots of discussion and debate on. This is the one that people argue on. Miranda versus Arizona is usually the simple one.
Really?
Yes,
I
yes.
think it's the exact opposite.
This is the one that if there's going to be argument, it's this case.
Maybe it's different times.
Well, last year too. Not just like back 25 years ago or something.